Yeah, I mean, this is part of the, this kind of silly comments on bios that I mean, people are pretending that you were very gifted even before you were born, and all that bullshit. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I've been involved with, because I was in the family doing music, and then I've been interested by instruments. And it's true that I started playing piano just for fun when I was quite young, and actually I hated it. I had a kind of awful teacher. I mean, and then I really hated it for 2 years, and then so I quit, and I went back around 8 or 9 by myself, and then with a more conscious approach and interest to it. I don't. I mean, I've been always. First of all, I've always been interested by paintings and visuals. I mean, I was talking about this period when I was a teenager, dealing with electronics and electronic music, and I used to be a painter at the same time, and I really hesitated between painting and music, really. And for me, it's always been the same kind of approach. And these days, it's even truer that. I mean, the way you can approach a video image or an image on a computer, for instance, or sound is more or less the same thing. I studied classical music at the Conservatoire in Paris, and then I moved into rock bands, and then into a music research center where, just opening in Paris at that time in the 60s. And you had only 2 places in Europe where you could study, not really study, but approach electronic concepts or electroacoustic concepts. One was in Köln, in Cologne, in Germany, with Stockhausen, and the other one was in Paris with Pierre Schaeffer and Pierre Henry, the 2 figures of electronic music, electroacoustic music. And it's I've been really interested by what they were talking about. For the first time, I mean, you have guys, talking about music in terms of sounds and not in terms only of codes and solfeggio and so on and so forth. And these guys are really the grandfathers of dance music or techno music, or the way we are doing music these days is word per word what these guys were saying in the 40s, by saying music should be considered as sounds, and the sound of the rain, the sound of a train, the sound of a street is music, and the difference between a sound in music is your intention and your intervention as an artist. And you can take the sound of a glass, broken glass, and making it an interesting bass drum or snare drum. And what we are doing these days with samplers is exactly based on this concept. And this concept became universal. And when I went into this school and center, I suddenly had the revelation that it was the music of the future. And I decided to follow this direction rather than following the kind of rock or classical way. I've always been, impressed and influenced by artists who are on the edge or in the middle, on the fringe, or in the middle of two states. We were talking about this with Metamorphoses, but I think that I've always been more interested by people being in the middle of 2 movements than the people being at the peak of the movement. I mean, in music, for instance, people such as Mahler or Richard Strauss always moved me much more than people like Bach or Wagner, for instance, as German composers. And it's the same thing with in the rock scene or in the techno scene. I mean, people in the middle of. For instance, I really like Chemical Brothers because they're really between the techno scene, between the pop and the rock scene. I mean, I really like their last album because of that, because it's not clear. It's not pure. I think unpure things are much more interesting than pure things in art and in life. Metamorphoses is quite a special project to me. First of all, it's a vocal album, what is not particularly. I've not been used to vocal albums so far, involving guests such as Laurie Anderson or Natasha Atlas, also other guests such as Sharon Corr, but and also after having Oxygen 7213, my last album, I had really the feeling that after having revisited the past, I wanted to be confronted to a blank page, a new chapter, and this idea of Metamorphoses, this came with the idea of the fact I wanted to approach the whole approach to sound in a different way, in a more organic, a more human way, maybe in a sense, to get. I mean, after having been considered as a kind of pioneer in the electronic scene, I thought that if I'm doing a record today, it means that it must no more being only related to what I've done, but trying to put my work in the context of the contemporary electronic scene by trying to explore new territories, particularly in the sound design, and also in the way I could project myself in all this as a human being, not only as a musician. So this title, Metamorphoses, came from all that, this idea of changes. Actually, I met Natasha Atlas few years ago. I've been aware of her work and her style a few years ago, when she was involved with a band called Transglobal Underground. And I really loved her voice. And you know, this whole album, I mean, talking about Metamorphoses, what I like in the state of Metamorphoses is being in the middle of two states, and being in the middle of two states or two sides, or being in the middle. And in a sense, all the people involved, all the ideas involved in this album are made or part of that. Natasha Atlas is half English, half Egyptian. She has a Belgian passport. She speaks Arabic, but she's involved in the Western world. So she's in the middle of both worlds. And for me, involving her really made a sense, not to make a kind of world music kind of statement. So that, I think, is belonging to the past. For me, it's more, the world music concept is more 80s, a concept belonging to the 80s. But more with the idea of integrating Oriental feel. I think definitely, Europe is now has an Oriental feel. Wherever we are in Germany, it will be a Turkish feel. In the UK, it will be an Indian or Pakistanis feel. In France, it would be a North African feel. But definitely, it's something that we have to live with, and it's probably the major influence of the 90s. If an artist is in constant metamorphosis, I think it should be Laurie Anderson, definitely. I mean, she's probably the most interesting, let's say, multimedia artist in America. I mean, being involved in from classical violin to video, from theater to rock videos, from rock performances or literature or paintings. and music, obviously. And I must say that I really am enjoying a lot working with her.
The darkest America, only the brave. You've already paid for this. Listen to my heartbeat.
I love the way she's able to convey such a wide range of emotions with almost nothing. It's a very specific quality she has.
On the edge of the night, they sing.
Actually, we met in New York a few years ago, just before Zulu. We were supposed to do a project together for a museum, something like that, and then we went to discuss about the idea of collaboration for a musical project, and it went. It happened in Zulu, where we did a song together about kind of imaginary language and inventing a language, and she played with that.
Saw this guy on the train, and they seem to have gotten stuck in one of those abstract trances. And he was going, and Fred said, "It's a virus."
I mean, I would say instrumental music, music without words, is an instrumental, universal language. When you are starting to deal with words, it's a different story. Sometimes disappointing on television when you see a concert in Honolulu or in Timbuktu or in Moscow or in Hamburg or in London, I mean, looking the same. And I think that's, these days, if you go to a performance, it's also to share something on a visual point of view. Otherwise, you stay at home listening to the CD. I mean, you have the excitement of the gig and people doing music live. That is definitely the main point of a performance. But besides that, you have also the visual environment, what in my opinion is important, and particularly with electronic music, where the way you're performing music is so different. I'm really feeling like a kid in front of technology or in front of all music phenomena. I've always had the feeling that I'm doing drafts and unfinished projects, that when I'm looking back, I'm not partly satisfied about a lot of things I would like to improve. And for me, it doesn't mean anything. I think that, and also the notion of progress, or the notion of paternity in arts, any art form, for me doesn't really count. I think it's true in sciences, it's true in technology, where every step is depending on the step before. But in art form, in music, I don't think it's true. And it's quite fair by the end of the century that you have all this sample technique, where people are using samples from other people, where everybody is stealing everybody. It's at last something becoming almost official, because it's always existed in any art form. Picasso, I mean, sampled African sculpture, African art, like or the Beatles sampled Indian music, or Stravinsky, and so on and so forth. I mean, I think nowadays we start to understand that art form is made of recycling, and internet is a very good tool to recycle images, sounds, and all that. In that sense, internet is very interesting, because it's a day-to-day tool to be in contact, to be like a global sponge, something like that. People are doing a big confusion between internet and the copyright thing. I mean, piracy existed before the electricity, before internet, and will exist after internet. And it's basically based on the fact that you have something in your pocket and I'm going to steal you, and to be like a thief. That's something else. And you steal in the street, you steal in this room, you steal something on internet, is the same thing. So that has to be forbidden, or you must have regulations. But internet is not linked with the idea of stealing informations. It's linked with the idea of distributing informations. And what internet needs is regulation. I didn't want to make any kind of oriental statement in the video. I think that is also, again, something that I don't like. I mean, the idea that you because you have you are dealing with an oriental musician or somebody outside Europe. I mean, it should mean no more an ethnic statement. And I mean, the whole idea of the song of C'est la vie is mixing English, French, and Arabic in a kind of urban, Western, late 90s way is the idea. It's not because you have some Arabic words in the track that you should have camels in the video. You see.